We are live on the floor of the LA Auto Show talking about cars, California, and how what happens here affects the rest of the country and the rest of the world. Next on Talking Cars. Thank you so much. Thank you. Welcome to Talking Cars. I'm Keith Barry.
I'm Jake Fisher.
I'm John Lincove.
I'm David Friedman.
Wait, you're who?
David Friedman.
David Friedman. So they're normally, frequent viewers will notice there are usually three of us. There's a fourth here. David, why don't you introduce yourself a little more? Tell us about yourself.
Sure, happy to. I'm the interloper here. It's great to be here on this fantastic podcast. I'm our vice president for advocacy at Consumer Reports. I'm also an engineer. I've spent some time in the auto safety world, in the energy world, and I love cars. I have to admit it, especially electric cars.
And you worked at NHTSA before this,
Yes,
correct?
I worked at the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration dealing with issues like the Takata airbag and the safety of EVs. I also worked at the Department of Energy where we were trying to help accelerate the market for electric vehicles and all sorts of other clean energy.
And the most important thing about David Friedman is that he spent a lot of time out in the West Coast. Otherwise, it would just be three sort of East Coasters here trying to California-splain you California car culture, and I don't think that would go over too well, right? So we are here at the LA Auto Show, and we're here to talk, I call it our California special. We're here to talk about what is going on in California and how it affects not just the rest of the United States, but how it affects the world. Because, car culture, everything from Route 66 to customs, to smog, to the environmental movement, to Silicon Valley and AVs. All of that is happening in this great state. And we want to hear from you as well, telling us your experience with cars. So, I'm just going to start off, Jake. What's the sort of, talk a little about the culture here of cars. Well, when you think California, what do you think?
So look, obviously we're here to hear from you guys. We're here to hear, see the culture, hear from you, to hear the experiences that you guys have had. But growing up in New Jersey, it's interesting. I was always like a car nut, and car enthusiasts kind of, there's different types of car enthusiasts around the country, and around the world, quite honestly. And, my parents always had Volkswagens, or my dad always had a Beetle, and they had a bus. And, even as a kid, I'm in New Jersey, and we're talking about the Cal Look Bug, and it was like, okay, and there's a whole culture around that. I think what's always kind of interesting is, you look at how people modify their cars or what they're into. A lot of places, it's big V8 engines and performance or big trucks, and they're lifting them. But what's interesting about California...
That's here.
Well, and that's here too, but also, the fact that there's the Volkswagens, the fuel-efficient Volkswagens could be very popular. Electric cars can be a thing. There's celebrities driving around, they were driving around Priuses or Teslas or anything that's actually, fuel. It shows that fuel efficiency and environmentalism can actually coexist with the absolute love for cars.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's just thinking back 10 years and everyone pulling up to the Oscars in a Prius, and now it's everyone showing up in a Tesla. Yeah. And that is a California. What do you spent some time out here, and
there's a good reason for that. There's lots of good reasons for that. But one of the big things is just the pollution challenges in this state. California is unique in so many ways, lots of good, but a few that are really challenging because of the geography and because of the number of cars. California, as you all know, have faced serious pollution problems. I still remember when I first came out to California. I went to graduate school at UC Davis. I used to own a motorcycle at the time, so I'm riding cross country, just enjoying my time, enjoying seeing this great country of ours.
Going the speed limit the whole time,
Going the speed limit the whole time, right? Had a helmet, had my full leathers on, safety first. And I remember coming over the mountains, and I look up in the sky, and I see this big, nasty brown cloud. That was one of my first introductions to California. Beautiful, beautiful mountains, beautiful vistas, but then this brown cloud that kind of marred that amazing view. And I know that's what so many people here have had to live with. Right now with the forest fires and the real challenges that creates, which is also tied to pollution from automobiles ultimately because of climate change.
It's like we have out here, it's the best of cars. I counted like 12 Toyota Previas in perfect condition out here. I mean, nowhere else on earth would those not have rusted to pieces. But also the built environment, it's just sort of the promise and the problems of the automobile. And I mean, we'd love to hear from you folks. You know, the cars you've owned, the cars you've loved, the ways that you've modified your own driving habits, the ways that you've made choices based on where we are. You know, I think someone in the audience earlier, were you talking to someone who had a fuel cell vehicle?
I was talking to Todd out here. Yeah, so we were talking a little bit, but I mean, you know, okay, so on the East Coast, right? We tested the Toyota Mirai fuel cell vehicle, and
the Nexo 2 and a few others.
We're the only ones, right? I mean, nobody, and actually, could we get a microphone now for Todd?
Hi, my name's Todd. I'm from Long Beach here in California. We have a 2017 Honda Clarity fuel cell, and I just hit 60,000 miles, and we acquired it in April of 2017. My drive to work and back can vary from 40 miles each way to 56 miles, depending on traffic here in California. One of the great things about the fuel cell, like the EV, it gives us access to the carpool lane. And that's why my drive can sometimes maybe be 56 miles, but I'll save 20 minutes off my drive rather than going the most direct route. And when I first got the vehicle back in 2017, there weren't that many. So fueling up was actually a lot easier than it's become recently with so many fuel cells coming out, especially the Toyota Mirai. That's made fueling up a little bit more challenging, especially for someone like myself who basically fills up every 2 or 3 days.
So it seems like the success of fuel cells have almost been the problem, that it makes it even harder to get some of the hydrogen stations. Has anyone else here ever owned a fuel cell vehicle? What about electric vehicle? Anyone own an electric vehicle? Sure, Matt.
It's more than the percentage of the overall market, I think.
How about this? What would anyone consider an electric car in their next car? Yeah, I mean, it shows really. I mean, I guess it's comparing now to really what the future is, and certainly here, I think there's a lot more people who are considering that than what we see across the country.
And John, I know you were here at the show all week, and we've been seeing the new options that will be available to you folks who want something that plugs in. I mean, a fuel cell. I mean, the Mirai is gorgeous.
Right. So you have the Mirai.
Yeah.
You know, they've shown the Prius Prime. I'm sorry, the RAV4 Prime. But you even have hybrids. You have the new CRV hybrid, which if anything, you're going to follow the lead of the Honda Accord hybrid. You're looking at probably a pretty efficient vehicle.
Yeah.
So
these are mainstream cars. These
cars.
are not.
They're not science experiments any longer.
Wait,
you're not
I got
looking at
another
the
question.
GM EV1.
Did anyone here own an EV1? No.
Before they were crushed,
Anyone
of
seen
course.
an EV1? Okay.
Well, and that's the exact point. No longer is it I can't hold anything, or it doesn't go anywhere in the winter, in cold weather.
These are the crossovers that everyone wants and loves.
It's a mainstream vehicle, and it doesn't look any different.
I think it also paints a picture of how radically things have changed. 15, 16 years ago, you could come to the LA Auto Show and you could not find a hybrid or electric vehicle. I was once with a group of folks and we were so upset that there weren't any hybrids or EVs at the show. We actually held a little protest outside. We got a bunch of folks to show up with their hybrids and EVs because the technology was there, but there were none in this place. And now they're all over the place. It's amazing how investments in innovation and California leadership has really changed that. I mean, California has really put in, whether it's HOV policies that you talked about, or tax breaks, or company requirements that have brought EVs from all sorts of companies all over the place. I mean, I'd be curious about that too. I mean, Tesla's the most popular one, but has any one of those EV folks, is it a Tesla, or does anyone here have a car that's not an EV, that's not a Tesla?
Well, I think we were talking about it. You just purchased one.
Hi, my name is Jim Lee from Stevenson Ranch. I own a Kia Niro EV.
And when did you buy it?
I bought it July 4th.
And was it easy purchase? Was it hard? Was there a demand at the dealership?
It took about 2 months for me to buy it, and it was only because I knew the general manager of the Kia shop that he was able to finagle his way to get Kia corporate to get him one.
Oh my gosh. I mean, we hear about people not being able to buy them at all because they're only sending them to the states that have joined with, they're sending them to the clean air states.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that there was that much demand out here for it.
Well, I was probably one of the first that bought a Kia Niro EV when it first came out, so it was hard. And I was shopping that between a Kona, but to put my stroller in, the Niro was a little easier. And so that's why I went that direction.
What was the knowledge? It's interesting because we purchase every car we test. You know, we go out and buy it. And in the case of the Mirai, we ship it from California, and I think also our first Leaf, we had to ship in from California. So what was the knowledge of the sales team about the vehicle?
It's horrible. I mean, being a YouTube auto junkie, I mean, I knew way more about the car, and rightfully, right? I didn't expect them to know, but you kind of have to arm yourself. Watch CR all the time and just be able to know what you're getting and what to expect. So it's one of those things that are difficult. I like that they're doing Charge Up LA. There's a lot of things that are promoting it out there. They didn't have it back then when I did. I just had to find the information for myself.
Wow. And I saw you also had your hand up you have an EV.
My name is Fern, and I'm from Altadena, California. And I have a 2011 Nissan Leaf and also a 2017 Chevy Volt. And I kind of have a heritage of EVs because my dad in the late 60s started an electric car conversion company. Wow. And he used to take small, usually foreign vehicles and convert them to electric. So we still have, now it's just been refurbished by a new owner, but a 1959 Vespa vehicle, and he did an electric conversion on it. And so it's kind of fun to see that after all of these years, people have finally caught on to electrics.
You know, I know we didn't talk a ton about this earlier, but there is that movement, customization and people, souping up cars, and you think of, Monster Garage, that kind of stuff. But also, there are people who are doing EV conversions of classics, and that's a way that, you can get some of breathe some new life into some of these cars and keep them on the road and keep them clean.
I mean, I think it kind of comes back to the fact that electric cars look, if you're an early adopter, and still in a lot of the electric car market, it is kind of catering to early adopters. Again, being the first one buying, the Kia, the dealership doesn't really know a whole lot about it. You kind of have to jump through hoops, and we're jumping through hoops buying these cars early too. But what's interesting is that it also lends itself so well to like a classic car. I mean, I've seen these conversions, and it's brilliant because now it's something, it's an older car, but it starts every time. You're not worried about the gas gumming up if it's sitting for a long time.
A choke is a fun thing to do. Okay, let's be honest.
What's a choke?
Setting the car, the points. Anybody?
Carburetor. No.
Exactly.
Do you mean like electronic fuel injection? Is that what you're talking? No, but it's perfect. I mean, if you have a vehicle that is just for like that sunny, time going to the car show, make it, trickle charge in the garage. It's perfect.
You talked about car culture in California. I grew up thinking Jen and Dean and the Beach Boys were still current, from my father who had a 65 Corvette and, collection of old cars. But, he moves into now, he has a Z06, a Corvette Z06, and he has a very efficient small car. So, yeah, you could have both fuel economy specials and you could have also, fun. But I'll tell you what, that Corvette gets great mileage on the highway.
And another classic name, the Mustang Mach-E that we saw out here. Using that name, it's controversial, but at the same time, it's giving that sense of, the Mustang was sort of freedom for a lot of people. It's that affordable, sporty, cool car that people could actually own.
I mean, the Mach-E, I love breaking the rules. It breaks the rules, and I think that's we're seeing a lot of that with electric cars. They're breaking the rules, right? They're breaking the rules of what the range could be. We saw what the Tesla's truck that broke all the rules of what styling
and
is.
all the windows.
And all, nicely done.
I'd also say though part of the other I think almost rule or assumption that EVs break is, and you said it, they're cool. I mean, more and more car companies are putting out really cool, compelling, sexy EVs. And if anyone's ever been in one, neck snapping acceleration, full torque right off the line, quiet, comfortable. They're a great ride, and they're
sports
fun.
cars.
Exactly.
They drive
We were
amazing.
talking earlier about the Jaguar I-Pace. And, it's a car that has some shortcomings, but wow, it is fun to drive. It is really, really fun to drive.
Even though, again, a car has shortcomings, a Chevy Bolt. Okay, the seats could be far better.
Yeah, they're kind of like these, but yeah.
a little more stable.
Yeah.
But a fun car to drive, and it's a fun car you could drive with the handbrake, the paddle braking, for the regenerative braking. You don't have to use the middle pedal. You can just drive with your right foot and brake with the steering wheel almost. It's great. It's a fun car to drive. It's also, we were talking about, it's more fun to drive a slow car fast than a fast car slow.
I agree. Do you agree?
Always have.
And you drive every car at the speed limit, so.
Absolutely. Always scanning, looking both ways.
Mirrors properly adjusted. Yes.
Adjusted, and make sure you get all those active safety systems.
That is true. So we've kind of talked about, EVs, but what also about some of the other rules out here about cars and there's this thing called CARB, and it affects the rest of the world, really. David, maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Sure. No, California broke the rules decades ago when they said air pollution is literally putting our health at risk. And California was the first state in the nation, in the world, to actually move forward on air pollution standards. And that history, starting in the late 60s and officially, locked in the decades after that, has fundamentally revolutionized the car industry. We were talking before about carburetors versus fuel injection. Well, air pollution controls are one of the great reasons why we have better systems for controlling the air-fuel mixture, which reduces pollution and can boost performance in a lot of these new cars. So California has been a trailblazer when it comes to making cars cleaner, and as a result, pushing innovation. I mean, why do we have EVs? A lot of it is because California said, car companies, you got to give consumers a choice. There's this new technology, it cuts the cost of operation in half. You got to give them the choice. You got to make sure that more people aren't stuck just being the first person buying that new Niro, that anyone can get those. It's changed the marketplace, and along with it, you got to give credit to Tesla for really seeing that opportunity, investing in EVs, saying, we're going to go all in. But part of why they went all in is they knew in California they could get support because of the push for the technology.
So we're here in Southern California. That's for the benefit of our listeners, not for you folks. You know where we are.
I hope.
But a quick train ride away. See what I did there? There's Silicon Valley, and that's the other part of this California story. That innovative culture, that move fast and break things that might be fine when you're watching Talking Cars, but yeah,
not when you're in a car.
Yeah.
Well, look, just to pause on innovation. I mean, just to kind of bridge, you talk about CARB, you talk about the emission standards, and it's kind of hear these I wish they made the cars like they used to in the 60s, they did big engines. It's like, thank goodness they don't. Let me just say that, because, the cars that they're showing here, the LA Auto Show is just bigger and better every freaking time. It is just amazing. We have just so many innovative vehicles, so many introductions, and it's not just the electric cars. With the emission standards that we have right now, with the fuel efficiency standards, with all of that, we've got 600 horsepower, 700 vehicles that are making, not putting out a lot of pollution. It's amazing what they're able to do, because I know when they originally came on some of these standards, everyone's gonna be driving around cars at 20 miles an hour, and they're all gonna be these tiny little cars. Didn't happen, because the engineering and the innovation, both in Silicon Valley
it took some while to catch up.
But it's amazing what is capable right now with all of that. And I think that drive for innovation, the next big thing, and obviously obviously there's a lot of, because of the success of the automotive culture here, we have a whole lot of traffic. And there's this kind of desire for, well, let me go and do something else while my car drives me down the street. And it is something that's aspirational, and as an engineer, it's exciting to try to figure out how to do that, and drives technology. But yes, obviously we have to do it safely. We have to do the testing safely. But
has anyone out here seen, because out in the East Coast, we don't see cars tested. We don't see Waymo.
Cars,
we don't see
testing.
Has anyone been driving to work and look over and there's just nobody in the front seat? You've seen them? Where in California did you see that? Up in the Silicon Valley? Yeah.
Hi, my name is Andrew J. From Berkeley, California.
Okay.
And typically in Silicon Valley, just driving around in the Bay Area, you see test vehicles all the time, especially near Mountain View, near Sunnyvale. So they're fairly common.
So I see your shirt, your bicycling shirt. Have you had to share the road with one of those?
Not particularly.
But would you feel comfortable if if you see one kind of coming up behind you that will recognize
now,
that?
yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
And I think that part of that is getting familiar with the technology. Yeah. I mean, you talked about the Arizona crash, and one of the challenges with such a new technology is one mistake can set people, create a lot of fear and can set the technology back. The flip side of it is it's good to get people safely exposed to them. And I think that's the rub right now when it comes to these self-driving cars or partly self-driving cars is let's set some guidelines, let's have some clear rules, and let's roll them out carefully and test the technology in a safe environment where the car companies think about who they're on the road with and what they're going to face. With the Arizona crash, they just failed. They fundamentally failed to do that. They didn't have a safety driver prepared to respond appropriately. They didn't have the systems that would require them to be paying attention. And as you said, they literally disabled some of the vehicle's safety systems. And it's the wild, wild west out here. And that's what worries me, is you could turn people off to the technology with more stuff like that.
Well, I guess one of the questions for the panel even before, or the audience, is it just a rush to be first on both municipal sides as well as automakers? Everyone hears in the media, and sometimes we even have written about they're coming, autonomous is coming, it's coming, and then you see this and you hear that, people think that a Tesla is a self-driving car, and then you have municipalities opening up and saying, oh, come here, come here, come here. Does it set unreal expectations? And does it lead to that?
And those municipalities maybe aren't even designed for them. You have something in that particular case, you have something that looks like a crosswalk. It's not a crosswalk. That encourages people to cross a road somewhere, and the car isn't programmed to kind of know that the way that a human driver would know.
Well, and San Francisco and Silicon Valley are very different places, same with LA. So a technology that may be able to handle the level of traffic in Silicon Valley may have a much harder time in the chaos of traffic in LA or with the hills in San Francisco.
Or winter in the Northeast. When you've got caked on snow on all your sensors.
When you can't see the lanes. Right. And the minute you can't see the lane marker, as great as eyesight is from Subaru, it turns
right off.
Yeah. The systems turn off. We cannot use them. Not to mention milling the roads constantly for potholes.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the level of stuff that you can do out here and figuring out how it translates to the rest of the world. So we talk about smart regulation, and I mean, I think that the states sort of acting as the laboratories of democracy. This idea that these states are doing cool things. I want to move to some news that's happening right now around us, where California, Michigan, and 26 other states are. What's going on, David?
So right now, there's really, in many ways, a battle over the future of the auto industry and a question of how much are we going to invest in cleaner cars that save people money on gas or maybe don't use gas altogether. In the last administration, there were rules that were set up that said that car companies have to gradually increase the fuel efficiency of their vehicles. Basically, the concept is you should be able to have your SUV and afford to fill it up too. Doesn't seem too crazy. And when we looked at the numbers, when we calculated it makes sense. You can save money from the first month you own a car, if you're the normal person who finances a car, by getting a vehicle that averages more fuel economy. You pay a little bit more up front, but it's spread out over a loan. We show that with the regulations that are in place right now, people would save about $3,300 over the life of the car. But there's a push in Washington to roll those requirements back. California, on the other hand, which under the law, under the Clean Air Act, can set its own greenhouse gas standards, is saying, hold on, we want to keep protecting our citizens. We want to make sure that they've got the latest innovations and more choices. So don't take away these rules that we all negotiated together. Well, now California and Washington are going head to head through rules in the courts and in the court of public opinion about what should the future of our car technology be.
And there's some news now that the state, I mean, it's a small number of vehicles, but the state has sort of even made a statement that they're not going to purchase vehicles from the manufacturers who are siding with.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's happened in this battle is a subset of companies, Ford, VW, Honda, and BMW, thank you, have made a deal with California. They said, we will voluntarily agree to innovate, to put more technology in our cars so that we can get something close to that $3,000 lifetime savings. A lot of other car companies, Toyota, GM, Fiat Chrysler, and others,
many of whom advertise a lot about their fuel-efficient cars. Many of whom are famous for fuel-efficient cars.
So yes, California has responded by saying, sorry, our state's not going to buy your cars anymore. We need to go all electric, and not only that, we're not going to buy from someone who is fighting against the future of clean air in California. It's a pretty big deal. Yes, as you said, it's not a ton of cars, but as a public statement, that's pretty radical, actually. It's pretty bold for California to be out there doing that.
It's like you folks driving your hybrids out here and parking them out front. It's that.
And sometimes you got to make a point. And this, I think I earlier said, this is really about the battle of the future of the auto industry and the future of car technology. And based on every analysis we've done, I got to admit, we come down on the side of keep the standards strong. It's better for consumers. It saves you money. And going back to what Jake said, never ever doubt the innovative prowess of the American auto industry or any car companies. You set a bar, they meet it. That's what California has done year after year. They said, we're going to set tough emission standards. It didn't end the auto industry. If anything, the auto industry is thriving, and you all tend to love your cars because you set a bar and the car companies ultimately knock it out of the park.
And reliability too. I mean, look at our latest reliability survey. These cars that are lasting for, right?
Well, average car on the road, 11 years, and they're many of them still ticking 200,000 miles. Some of the people here in the audience, 150,000 miles. I mean, one of the things I was going to add to your statement, David, is that safety shows you can have safe vehicles and fuel efficient. I know a lot of people in 2008 and 9, $4 a gallon in the East Coast. I don't want to know what you were all paying. Why can't I have a Honda CRX HF? I was getting 48 miles per gallon in that car.
My 3-cylinder Geo Metro.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that car would probably not perform well against the Chevy Bel Air, I believe, if it was crashed against that. That would lose out. Now you can have 45 miles per gallon, you can have 30-something miles per gallon, but you also have airbags all around. You have electronic stability control. You have analog brakes. You now have autonomous features, semi-autonomous or partial autonomous features. You can now have it all.
Well, and just, bringing back to a couple of vehicles, again, we talked about that RAV4 Prime that they just showed. I mean, here's a vehicle, it's an SUV, should get, nearly 40 miles per gallon, second fastest Toyota, 0 to 60 in 5.8 seconds. I mean, it's four-wheel drive,
right?
Everything.
That was a muscle car in the 60s.
Well,
sure.
Right.
That was a muscle car in the 90s. I mean,
and then, taking the next step in terms of electric, you mentioned reliability, they're pretty solid, the electric, I mean, just, you start taking apart the cars, you start thinking about what goes into an internal combustion engine vehicle, and then you look at an electric vehicle, and it's so much more simple. There's so less things to go wrong. So, I mean, really, when you talk about durability and reliability and maintenance, there's such a huge advantage of a pure electric vehicle that is so fast, too. You have the performance, you have all that, and you don't have a transmission fail, the fuel injection system.
Driveline isn't the problem.
yeah.
No,
Even
no.
your regenerative brakes. I mean, how many times do you have to change your, pads and rotors? Yeah. So we've done a lot of talking about cars, and I can see folks out here. I see hands raising. People want to talk. So, Dave, if you can bring out that microphone, we can get some questions. I saw one in the front row here.
Hi, I'm Rick from Irvine, California. My question is in regards to electric cars. I would be coming up on getting my first electric car, and my concern beyond like range anxiety, because they kind of solved that issue, is what else, in your opinion, would be beyond range anxiety would be something that I would want to consider buying my first electric car?
Well, I think one of the things we talk about a lot is the commute and where to charge. So, can you charge at work? Can you charge at home? Do you live in an apartment? You know, if you live in an apartment, do you park on the street? Do you have in your garage? What about where you're at work? Is it one charger that the company has, or none? Or those are just some of the basic usability, because you know when we're
the guy in
testing
the
a car,
office
like,
next to you plugs into gets an EV2, and you're both, trying to get there at 8:55 to plug into the charger.
I hate that guy.
8:54
I
to
hate
get,
that
yeah.
guy.
so I would think
say
of basic things.
But with the 200-mile plus EVs, I just don't see that as a big deal anymore. I mean, going back and forth to work, you're less likely to see it. Going on a longer trip, or if if you desperately need to charge that day. And I think those are the things that there is some different thinking when you have an EV that you got to just get used to, keeping an eye on how much charge do you have and are you ready for it.
That's the type of thing that you have to just plan at the EV. I didn't choose a job based on the proximity of gas stations, for example. And we have an Audi.
I did.
You did, well, because it's at the track.
Yeah, we have one.
But I brought our e-tron home I had it for 4 days. I brought it home on a Thursday night. I was working at home on Friday, drove around, did this, did that. It gets cold, rainy, using the heat. All of a sudden I realized, I have 30 miles left. My commute's 25 to work. I plugged it in overnight. I had 30 miles of range because it takes so long. And I'm plugging into my home wall.
Oh, so you
it's
got
things
110.
like that. I have 110, right?
Yeah,
I don't have a house built for that.
You got to have 220
and
because
that's the type of thinking I think you have to have.
So I was going to say
Absolutely.
something completely different, not anything along that.
How cool you are.
My friend John is here. But it's still a car. Okay, I mean, yeah, there's all these, and I think, David's right. I mean, a lot of these things are kind of getting worked out in terms of range anxiety. It's still a car. And one of the things that we've noticed with a lot of electric cars is because they realize that sometimes it's early adopters who are buying these electric cars, they fill it with a bunch of other stuff that they don't want. So it is their test beds to put on all these crazy electronics and capacitive controls and touch screens and automatic this and automatic that, and not all that stuff works. So you're still buying a car, and you do have a choice of many vehicles out there. You've got more conventional ones like the Bolt. You've got ones that are farther out there, like Tesla. They're trying new things. So ultimately, it's not rocket science to have an electric car that goes 250 miles anymore. It's something that is available. But you still have a big choice when it comes to do with cars. Do you want something that's sporty? Do you want something that rides nice? Do you want the Minority Report, touchscreen going on when you're driving the car? Think about all those things too.
And do your own research, because we are finding that folks, even at the most progressive dealerships, that they still can't. Is that
right?
Well,
and I'd also watch out for, and I've experienced this when I bought a plug-in hybrid, and I experienced this, and I more recently bought an EV. Not only were they not super aware of the technology, they started trying to steer me to something else. I'm like, I'm here for a hybrid, or I'm here for an EV. And they're trying to sell their latest popular thing. I get it. That's the mindset they're in. But if you're there for an EV, don't let them steer you away. Make sure they get you what you want, because you're the one in charge.
Yeah, because they're trying to move it off the lot and not pay interest and floor planning on it.
So we got another question over here.
Hi, my name is Seth. I'm from Westchester, New York. So you guys talked a little bit earlier about the fight between the federal government and California. How culpable do you think the automakers are from kind of talking out of both sides of their mouth? I mean, clearly, if they're pushing back, they're hiring lobbyists to make sure that the federal government's pushing back, and yet they're all a little bit jealous of Tesla for getting a lot of their press and whatnot. And some of them are delving gently into the electric pool, but not really. So I feel like the automakers really kind of creating their own problem by not really, embracing what is clearly a shift in the technology and what the public wants. And so GM still wants to sell Corvettes and big trucks, but they also sell the Bolt. And I feel like until they fully commit, we're kind of going to straddle that line and not really move the ball forward. So I was curious what you guys think about the automakers talking out of both sides of their mouth.
Well, the first response is you nailed it. I mean, that is exactly one of the problems. And think of it this way: automakers know people really care about things like fuel economy. They care about their public health and the environment. They care about safety. Oftentimes what they'll do is they'll market about those things. They'll create halo cars and really say, look, aren't we great? Look at this car. But they're not necessarily thinking about the mass market, right? They're kind of like, look over here when they're doing this over there. The other thing, just real quick, that I'd say is we recently did a study and we looked at automaker advertising. And on some ways it wasn't surprising. What do they spend most of their advertising on? Hitting you in your gut, emotions. Is it sexy? Is it freedom? Is it this? Is it that?
Is it tough?
Is it tough? The amount of ads they put out there on electric vehicles, you can almost count on one hand. So they're not investing in pushing it, and it does create this self-fulfilling cycle. My comment is, don't blame consumers if they're not buying electric cars. Blame car companies for not making cool, awesome, sexy EVs or hybrids. I do think that's changing. And this auto show shows that it's changing, but there's still a long way to go. They got to put as much marketing dollars behind their EV as they do behind their gas cars.
I was just going to say, I think the thing that bothers me a lot is not doing the right thing because they don't have to. And I'll just name one I'm going to call it a loophole, but the fact that if you can make your vehicle big enough and heavy enough, you don't have to have the same safety stuff. You get the gross vehicle weight to a certain level and you're like, well, that's not really a light vehicle. And you see this with like the Ford F-250s and those trucks. Like, they talk about, oh, we did all these things for, fuel efficiency and all that. But then they don't tell you what the fuel efficiency is because I don't have to, because that's the way the rules are written. You'll see there's an electric pickup truck that's here by Bollinger, I think the name is. Get into it and look at the dashboard. There's no airbag in this car. It's going to be an expensive electric pickup truck. It has no airbag. It's 2019, I believe. And I asked him, why is there no airbag? Well, we don't have to because it's heavy enough. It's not required. That kind of stuff blows my mind. That, come on, safety, fuel efficiency. Come on, why not?
I do think, though, that the automakers realize that their profits are going to be very different than they are now. I think they're prognosticating. You look at sort of the labor agreements and look at, they're realizing that there's going to be a kind of a long winter that they might not come out of ahead. And I think they're, by pushing as many crossovers, by as much easy money as possible, by, pushing as many trucks. And
they're companies. They're there
they're trying to make as much as
money
possible.
And please stockholders.
So
I think all that's true, but you got to be careful of cutting off your nose to spite your face.
Exactly.
Because, when I'm driving down the road, the way I keep myself and my family safe, it's not by looking at the road right over the hood. It's by looking down the road and around the curve. That's how you keep your family safe. That's also how you keep your company safe, is by looking down the road. What's coming down the road in terms of technology? What's the market going to look like in 5 or 10 years? Not just what does it look like today.
Yeah, what can we make a quick buck today?
I think you're so right.
Yeah.
You're so right. That's one thing that Toyota does do. They look at that long range. 20 years ago when they started out with the hybrids, you know what? It was kind of a science project. It wasn't all that desirable, but they stuck with it because they're like, in the future it's going to make sense. Right. Or fuel cells.
The Highlander. And
they're not selling a huge amount of Mirais right now, but you know what? They're saying, hey, down the road, we think it's going to be a thing when we have the infrastructure. There was a hand.
Someone has a question?
Hi, I'm Brenda. I'm from Monrovia, the home of the late, great Coda EV. You can still see some on the streets of our city.
Oh, wow.
You had mentioned earlier municipal regulations, and we're known as early adopters and innovators. One of the things that certainly we see, not only in my city, but throughout California, and you talked about cars needing to, manufacturers needing to do the marketing, but I think consumers have to also understand the infrastructure and what the relationship is. Now, California and our local jurisdictions have made progress in coming up with networks of EV chargers throughout the system and encouraging those in development projects and new housing. Transit-oriented development is what we are all about around here. And you don't even have to have 2 parking spaces per apartment in most places. Mm-hmm. And so those infrastructure municipal things that affect the way consumers live that aren't necessarily driven by the manufacturers. And I was wondering, how does that translate maybe to the East Coast, comparing California to that?
Thank you. That was, I'm really glad you brought some of those things up.
One of the things I think Keith could also fill in with Montreal, Canada, and the province of Quebec. Montreal, I visited this summer, and chargers everywhere and incentives that you must buy for registering new cars down the road.
They make it a lot cheaper to own an EV up there too.
Exactly.
And then
all the Uber drivers that were up there,
Yeah.
not advocating for Uber over something else or a cab, but a ton of them had new EVs, new Hyundai EVs and such. And you can just plug it in on the street, and that is the push by the provincial government, let alone the city of Montreal. So
and in some of the harshest conditions on Earth, where places go to test cars.
Right.
I went to some areas outside of Montreal in the eastern townships, and I bring that we have a lot of listeners from up there. But and some of these roads, they're people driving the Nissan Leaf on dirt roads. They got snow tires. They're fine, and it's it's way below freezing. But we also did a little bit of a road trip that we can give a little bit of a preview of too. John, I think you might be able to.
Yes, so some of our
around Connecticut.
Some of our staff would take some of our EVs and drive up and down the I-91 corridor, Interstate 91. We don't call it the 91. We call it I-91 out east, and just tried to find charging stations a few miles off the highway. We weren't going into the woods of Connecticut where we are, but they found a lot of difficulty at times. There's a charger here. Oh, they've been iced by a internal combustion engine car sitting by the charger. They get into a garage and have to pay. They pay for the garage. They go up to the third floor. It's not working.
And no one knows how to fix it.
No one knows on the app that they're using. It hasn't been updated to say it's broken. So that's the trouble. You could use apps to find a charger in your area, but you may not know the status of that morning or that moment, or if it's blocked, or if it's full of cars. It takes a lot of planning still, I think, to end up without having those chargers that are plentiful.
And there's different charging networks, and you got to be subscribed to this one or whatever. I mean, like if you have a gas-powered car, you don't have to I need to get a mobile card before I go to mobile.
Pay cash at the gas station.
Yeah,
right.
It's like getting a scooter outside. I have to have the app before I can move.
Oh, no, that's a bird. Oh no, that's a lime.
Exactly.
But I mean,
Exactly.
what you were
Which is
saying
something
about
that's
right.
sorry. That's something that's different here, because again, California is put into law requirements that you need to be able to use a common credit card to be able to pay at a charging station here. So what you're talking about paints such an important contrast, and how other states, aren't following suit yet with some of the great innovations that are out here. Even building codes can be an issue. I mean, the fact that you're having to charge at 110 at home, well, what if at least with new construction, you always have to have a 220 outside so that you can plug in your EV.
Or put a 220 in the garage.
I got to say, I go Boston and Connecticut. I live in a condo building that dates back to the 1800s. It's on the National Register. It's not fancy, but it's old. And some of that.
Condos in the 1800s?
No, it was. If I tell you what it was in the 1800s, people will know where I live. So I'm not going to bring that up. But it was something else in the 1800s.
All right.
And there's nowhere to charge, and in order to run the power through, they just can't do it. So I could never own an EV, even though I want one. There's not a lot of new construction going on in certain parts of the country, and retrofitting gets really expensive.
Well, and that's where public charging and retail charging can be so critical. I mean, you can easily spend an hour or two shopping in some of these places. Some companies use it as a great way to haul in customers.
Yeah. I was on a panel earlier this week that talked about that, and folks from companies that run malls, they see it as they are working with Tesla, Electrify America. They're working with competing companies to bring in these chargers. But I still want to be able to plug in at home before I go in. Yeah, and that's what a lot of the retailers are doing. They're putting those chargers there to draw people in, and then they can buy while they're waiting. I see another question in the back.
Hi, my name is Jason from Sherman Oaks, California. And as you said, you can tell by my shirt, I am a Tesla fan. I'm president of the Los Angeles Tesla Owners Group.
Cool.
You were talking about charging and that being hard. That's one of the things I think Tesla has done really well with the supercharger network. If I do go on a long drive, I don't have to worry about, is that charger broken, is it down? Because the car tells me in the car, chargers offline, chargers online. There are 8 of 10 chargers available in that site. Stop at this charging location for 8 minutes and you go on to the next charging location. Also want to say, you were talking about one of the questions about EVs, and a lot of people often ask, well, how reliable are they? How long is your battery pack going to last? I'm also the owner of an original Tesla Roadster.
Oh, wow.
It'll be celebrating its 11-year birthday in a few months. I have my original battery pack. I still get over 220 miles of range on a full battery charge. So, they work wonderfully. I have had very little problems with it in its 11 years of life, and it still drive it, not daily, but almost at least a few times a week.
So pro tip, that's how you get invited to the Tesla Cybertruck event. I was just talking to Jason.
I did drive the
go to it?
Cybertruck last night. It was
looked like
awesome.
quite a party.
It was fun. Like you said, it broke many rules. And I think once they're on the road, people are going to think that is the greatest truck ever invented.
Yeah, I mean, just a couple of notes on looking at that. What Tesla has done with the infrastructure. And they really did kind of change the rules. I mean, until we had that Tesla infrastructure going across, it was just kind of like, you got this car and you go back and forth to work, and that was it. I mean, they did kind of do that, and yeah, now we're in a world where you could drive across the country with an electric car, and I think that is awesome. And I think they do make it. It's kind of like a no-brainer. It's like you go there and you plug it in. You don't have to fiddle with anything. The only downside of it is, and I know, Tesla has really talked about kind of like they really want to move the market. They want to electrify everything.
They're change the world and all that. Yeah.
And then maybe this is very much of an East Coast thing, but like we have a lot of rest stops that were very old and very small, and you can't find parking in them anyway. And there's like 8 spots that are Tesla chargers, which are usually filled with large pickup trucks. But beyond that, if another automaker wanted to put their own stations there, there's no room for them. And if you had an electric car, you can't get a charge from your Tesla charger. And there's really no room to put other electric chargers. So I mean, I think the one downside, although at the time it made so much sense, it would be great to kind of, lift all the boats up and allow, other electric car users to be able to kind of have an infrastructure. So I mean, can you imagine a world that like, when Ford, came out and General Motors came out and Dodge came out, there was only gas stations for each one of them, and that's a little bit of what we're saying.
Nozzle.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, with my diesel, I've had that happen at truck stops with the giant, difference. But luckily, there's usually another pump just down the road. It's different.
Well, and who knows? I mean, Tesla has opened up some of their patents. Maybe they can open up some of their chargers.
Or is it going to be another Apple versus Android sort of idea?
I hope not, because I agree. It's, anytime you're limiting consumer choice that way, it can become a challenge. I think what Tesla did was amazing, right? I mean, they put in those chargers as a way to help sell their cars. It wasn't just about, the ability to charge up. It was, we're going to solve range anxiety for you two ways.
There's an automaker being serious about wanting to sell EVs.
Absolutely.
They made them cool. They don't spend money on traditional advertising the same way, but they sent you up to an event in California that looked like quite a spectacle,
right,
and got more press than a lot of things here at the show. So,
and
hopefully they can open it up because they've done so much.
I mean, it's kind of like, it's like telecom, right? I mean, like you can see, AT&T and
exactly.
Verizon, they're all competing, but they have their own, networks, and they've got, all these different cell towers over. I mean, it's like, I'm glad there aren't, 3 different rails of railroad tracks that go across the country that only certain trains can go on. So
it's one thing when it's cellular signals in the sky that don't take up space per se. It's a whole other thing when it's literally a physical object.
Does anyone own a Betamax VCR?
Oh, look at that. They seem very proud.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Hi, my name is Ashton. I'm from Whittier. I have a question with the safety benefits of technologies like Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. I've noticed some manufacturers are leaving them off of the base model of their vehicles, or others are charging fees, annual, monthly fees for them. Can you say why they would do that?
You've touched a nerve or 5.
I think all of it ends up doing is creating distractions. Okay, so I own a BMW. And I don't, but I buy a BMW and I don't want to pay that charge. And they say, well, that way people who lease aren't paying everything up front for the second owner. I'm just going to put something up on the dash, if at best, or hold it in my hand. I don't have this. that's a concern.
So I mean, the broader question is, I mean, it's really not just about, well, it's not about Android Auto. Like all these different options, which are somewhat safe. I mean, what kills us is like, oh, you want pedestrian detection? Well, you got to pay extra. You want automatic emergency braking? You got to pay extra. I mean, this is stuff that may save your life or save a life of a pedestrian or something. It's like, oh, well, that's a luxury. No, it should not be. Now, Android Auto and CarPlay, interestingly enough, we have a lot of surveys. We're asking about these. And what we do find is that people who have these features are much less likely to pick up their phone and use and manipulate it that way. And we know people who do that are going to be more likely to be distracted and crash. So it is a shame. And this new feature, so what you're referring to is this, and it's really BMW and Audi that are using wireless CarPlay, and they are charging a fee to use that. And that's just another source of income, and I don't get it. It is a little disturbing though, because as we have these electronic connections, this digital connection to your car, I mean, what's next? Oh, we're going to turn off your seat heaters if you didn't pay the $3 this month. The cruise control
model. I mean, look at your streaming video and how many things you now have to
your
have.
whole car's a la carte.
Yeah, everything is a la carte. And I mean, we have this wonderful program, What the Fee, at Consumer Reports, and I'm making a suggestion here. Maybe this is one that we take on as an extremely consumer unfriendly one, that you have to pay to use something that is already coded into your car.
Right, because unfortunately it is a race to the bottom in many cases, and you can see this becoming something much like airline fees.
Yeah.
And hotel fees.
Yep.
With other manufacturers.
It took passing a law, literally it took an act of Congress to try to at least start reining in the airlines. It used to be even worse, believe it or not, than it is today. Now at least they have to tell you what the full price is up front. Cable companies don't have to do that. We're trying to get a law passed to change that. I mean, Jake, you all have talked about destination fees too as a whole other
they keep on going higher and higher, and they're not in the MSRP. They don't advertise those. It's like, oh, and by the way, you're going to pay another $1,500 to get your Fiat delivered.
Whether it's built in the same town that you're in, or it's being shipped across the country, which is even more insulting.
Yeah.
And look, I get it. They're in this to make money. Good on them. But be straightforward with your customers. Tell them what it's really going to cost and just build it into the price. But as Jake said, safety should never, ever be a luxury. At the end of the day, they know you want to be safe. They shouldn't take advantage of that. They should actually get you and bring you in as one of their favorite customers by putting safety first.
And the good news is we're seeing, and especially at this show and as we're updating profiles, we're seeing more and more cars are getting those things. Even from 2020 versus 2019, more and more cars, as they're getting redesigned, they realize it's just cheaper to make one screen rather than to make two different screens or two different systems. And it's, you're going to get that in all the levels. So that's a great question.
In the same way, with safety, we've actually tried to move the market forward by giving manufacturers points or taking them away if the whole line of vehicles doesn't have certain safety features. And
so automatic emergency braking, forward collision warning.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we're looking at other aspects of that, right?
Yeah.
My name's Raj. I'm from San Jose, California. I think the manufacturers benefit from your placing their cars way up on the ranking list, like the X5, for instance, right? But what happens when the reliability drops? What responsibility do you have to get a response from them on that kind of a thing?
So
getting them to act on reliability questions, because you put them up there, they benefit from the feedback.
Well, so one of the things that we do, we now have for the last year or two, what's an overall score. So how we generate that score is we take our road tests, and many of you know, but some of our listeners and viewers may not. We put every vehicle through 50 tests, some subjective, some objective. You incorporate safety features, what they have is standard. And then we also look at our reliability and our owner satisfaction scores. Reliability is weighted heavier. And the BMW X5 is a great example because it had a very high overall score. It has a very high road test score, but it had a high overall score. But when its reliability dropped, it significantly fell. And if a manufacturer wants to be high in our rankings, it's no longer just road test. It's not road test score. They sit at the top, great. I make a fantastic vehicle to drive and live with, and it falls apart. Nothing you can do about that unless you make that choice. Now it just falls to the bottom. So if you're looking for the top performing vehicles, you're not going to see that.
I mean, and that's kind of something that's very, very different about our ratings than virtually anywhere else. because they rate the vehicles on how they drive. We realized that making sure it continues to drive is a really important thing. And it seems so obvious, but it's virtually not there anywhere else. And like, I'm very often talking to reporters and they're like, this car was North American Car of the Year or so-and-so Car of the Year. And like, why didn't you guys like it? I'm like,
Alfa Romeo.
And then we hear from owners who have these cars, hundreds of them, and saying, the car spent 22 days in the shop, and the dealer won't call me back. I'm driving a loaner that wasn't as nice as what I got. And it's like, that's so important. And it just kind of blows my mind in this day and age that this could be Car of the Year or whatever and not even consider any of those things.
My friend bought an XC90, but first year XC90, and they had a lot of problems. Volvo XC90 had a lot of problems on it. So the loaner car, Range Rover Sport. Which was reliable. That drove without a problem. So you just look at that.
Yeah. Anyone else? Any other questions? One more?
It's kind of an EV policy question, maybe going back to hidden costs. California is one of the states that is trying to recoup lost revenue from gasoline taxes that aren't being recuperated. And so I'm not sure what other things might be down the way, but I thought maybe putting a tax on the tires if they're really trying to get mileage on the road as being one of the things that could be done, maybe based on UTOC scores on a tire. But anyways, what are your thoughts on those type of policies and anything else that we might not know that is coming down the road for that?
For those who are listening, David Friedman's grin just kept growing as that question got asked.
Well, I feel like someone asked you to come here and talk about some of the issues that we love so much. So we actually recently did a report very much tied to this issue because there's actually states all over the country who think the way to solve their highway funding shortfalls is to tax EVs. And we just did a study recently that literally showed that numerous states are literally charging EV owners more than pickup truck drivers are paying in gas taxes. So they're actually putting more of the burden for the roads on vehicles that tend to be lighter and do less damage on the road. There's a lot of different ideas that are at play. There's no doubt we've got potholes and failed bridges all over the place in this country. I think we usually get about a D or an F on our infrastructure score. That's not great for anybody's reliability of their car in the long run. People talk about different things. Maybe some of it's just boosting up the gas tax. Maybe some of it is per mile fees. Maybe there's opportunities for when you're on roads that need more upkeep, that there's ways to charge fees associated with those. I don't think there's a silver bullet, but the reality is there's a real problem, but it doesn't make sense to put it on the backs of people who are trying to solve bigger problems like saving money on gas or addressing climate change.
So one thought I had was on the UTOC score, the tires that last longer, maybe those are incentivized because then you get better tires as well to be able to tax along those type of mileages.
So Jake and company should weigh in on this too. The complication is tires are actually a high-tech part of your car. And there's a lot of trade-offs that can happen. Just because a tire lasts a long time doesn't necessarily mean it's the best tire out there. Its rolling resistance may be worse, and so you're actually spending more money on fuel, or its stopping distance might not be as great. So I would, if you're going to think about it, I go per mile rather than for the tire itself.
I think it's very interesting, and actually it's something I will definitely think about, and I think it's a really interesting way of going about it. And the question is really is your tire, how much tire you use, more closely related to how much fuel you use? And I think we're seeing that disconnect with EVs. So I think that's very, very interesting. I mean, yeah, everything's a balance, but I mean, you could argue against electrics and fuel-efficient cars. It's like, well, cars have to be smaller. It's a balance. So
or
I mean,
they're heavy and they do use the roads.
And when it comes to tires, I mean, good tire manufacturers are able to get fuel efficiency and longevity and all those things. So really interesting. I haven't heard that. I think that's a really innovative thing. And I think, again, kind of go full circle. I mean, this is why we're in California. Like a tire. Innovation, a lot of innovation comes out of here, and I think it's time that we start thinking about these things differently, and that's a different way of thinking about it, and we all have to do that more.
Well, also something that may not be a regressive tax. You're buying it, you have a heavier car, you have a tire, you have to make that choice, not just at the pump where you're stuck in, it's just a flat tax no matter what you own, what you are doing. It's just what your fuel.
It should be related to your use, yeah.
Well, the interesting curveball on that is what really is wearing down our roads. It tends to be the big 18-wheelers.
Yeah.
So that's where the real issue is.
And they use a lot of tires.
And they use a lot of tires and a lot of fuel.
Sure.
You are getting insights into how policy gets made, thought of, and how we see our decide our advocacy
lot of
positions.
tires.
So, keep an eye out. Thank you so much, everyone. This has been great. We've really, really, really enjoyed it. We need to come out to California more often.
Yes.
Particularly during the winter.
Yep. And we're really looking forward to doing this again. So maybe we'll see you again next year. And thanks for talking cars with us.